Hey, this is Perry's Hotter, your friendly neighborhood mangaka in the making a manga review for you today. I will be reviewing Gantz. For the most part, I'll be going over the first chapter and touching a little bit or more on the rest of the book or series overall. This will contain spoilers, so watch at your own risk. If it's a series you think about reading or maybe didn't know about and didn't intend on reading, then hearing spoilers might just be the thing to make you decide whether you want to read it or not. If you've already read it, then just sit back, relax, and enjoy my commentary analysis on what I think of the book. So, first off, I usually have volume 1, but this is not a volume 1. This is an omnibus, meaning it has 3 volumes or tankobons. And it's pretty thick. You can tell, even if this was 3 individual books, that I think they would be thicker than a normal manga. They'd have a bit more pages and story. And Gantz does have quite a bit of story to it. If you notice, it says parental advisory. There's a good reason for that. It's a lot of violence and sex and, well, not necessarily sex. I mean, there's some of that, but there's nudity. But it's mostly violence, but you'll see. And so this is number 1, and I've actually read up to 8 of the omnibus, and actually I'm waiting on 9 because the omnibuses are still coming out. The series is done. You can go and read it all, but if you want to read it physically, you probably have to buy the individual books. So I'm just going to wait until the next omnibus comes out to read further into the story. And so, and also, just before I get into the chapter, what made me want to read Gantz was I watched a video by some YouTuber, why you should read Gantz, and it's like, oh man, that made me want to read Gantz. But, and it's messed up, and it's like, I like messed up stuff, so. But what I don't like is if it ends messed up. So, without further ado, I'll just get into the chapter. The author is Hiroya Oku. I believe I said that right. There's a main character, Key. This is some celebrity or model that Key really admires, and he's just looking at this magazine in a subway station, which sets the scene for the situation that's about to unfold. And Key, right off the bat, is pretty unlikable and rude. He is not a typical shining shonen protagonist, because this is a seinen, meaning it's more mature, and sometimes also means characters tend to be jerks, also what I've learned. And then this guy next to him was actually a childhood friend, and he actually has this totally different view of Key, that he's like some good guy even though he isn't, but I guess from their childhood he thought he was. And then when this drunken homeless person stumbles onto the train tracks, that's when this guy that knew Key from childhood is going to go and try and rescue this guy. And so Key, not really wanting to rescue, somehow finds himself also rescuing. So he has some redeeming qualities, although he's moving and he doesn't know why. And then he actually doesn't recognize him up until this point. I think maybe partly Key goes because he doesn't want to look bad. But they're both on train tracks, and let's see, do they get that guy up? I want to say, yeah, they help that guy up, but now they're stuck down there, and the train's coming, and they die. Yep, they die in the first chapter, and there's a reason for that. Yeah, there's already violence in the first chapter off the bat. And they wake up in this strange room. With these other people in a black orb. And these are kind of a roster of characters for the horror. It's kind of that horror trope, a bunch of people forced to work together. You've seen it in Saw and that movie with the box. You've seen it in old zombie movies and current zombie shows. And of course, no one knows where they're at. And everyone there figures out that everyone was on the verge of death, but what happened is they actually died. And so they're speculating about where they're at. They're in heaven or whatever. And that's actually the first chapter. And so that's an interesting thing about this book, is unlike other manga, the first chapter isn't actually self-contained, and the arcs are rather long. And I want to say that right off the bat, this story goes into a story arc that is like this entire omnibus, which is why I might recommend just getting an omnibus over the individual books, because the story arcs tend to be long, and the first one takes up like this entire book. And I think there's a reason for that, and that this story tends to live by kind of moment to moment. So, I heard that manga includes things that you would cut out in other media, which, I mean, it does, although I don't like thinking of it, it includes all the stuff that you don't need. I mean, it just includes quieter moments, but in comics there is something called moment to moment that manga does, but it's like Gantz does that from the beginning to end. It's rarely feels like it's abridging the story. I think that's partly why the arcs are so long. And, usually a lot of stories, when they show you something once, they assume you'll know and remember it. And when it comes to it again, they'll kind of skimp over it. But Gantz doesn't do that. It goes through the motions every time and shows you the same things that happen, albeit they might be a little bit differently and circumstantial in the story. But I'm glad that it keeps that continuity. It doesn't forget it. And just because that you've read it before and assumes you already know it, that it just ignores it or skims over it. There are plot devices introduced that stay throughout the entire story, and they just don't go away. Like, they have these, this is a little bit spoilery, but they have these bombs in their heads. If they go outside a certain area, it will explode. And it's like, every story arc, there's going to be people that ignore this, and their heads will explode, or it'll come into play, and it doesn't forget that, and it doesn't just skimp over it. That's just like one example. And so, basically, because the first chapter doesn't really actually cover the premise of Gantz, I'll just go ahead and explain the rest. People that are on the verge of death within this certain area in Japan are summoned by Gantz, this unknown mysterious force that gets these people together and transports them to an area to fight these aliens. It calls them aliens. We don't actually know what they are, why they're there, but you have to kill them within a certain time limit, or else you won't get any points. If you don't get points, you have no hope of escaping Gantz, because guess what? If the alien doesn't kill you, which is a very high chance the alien will kill you, but you somehow survive, you will get a second shot at life. Is because you have died, you'll get to go back and live your normal life for the rest of the week. But then Gantz will call upon you again at some point, and then you'll have to do this whole traumatic thing all over again, until you either reach 100 points and can get free, or you die, basically. And that's the story of Gantz. And so the paneling is pretty good for the most part. There's some nudity there on that page. It doesn't take long to get into nudity. Like I said, the main character, he's kind of an a-hole. He's doesn't have a lot of redeemable character arcs. But that's the point. He does get better. And his motivation, most characters, they have a dream. They want to be king of the pirates. They want to be Hokage. They want to get stronger and beat Jiren in the tournament power. Key, he just wants to have sex. He wants a girlfriend, and he wants to do it. And that's like his motivation for the longest time. And it's like when he's faced with death, and he isn't the only character like this. There's like maybe one or two other characters that are like this in the series, and I'm thinking, if you're a virgin and you're facing death, that's gonna be one of the last things on your mind, because death isn't pleasant, virgin or not. Like, that's not something, you know. I don't think it's gonna be at the forefront of your mind. But Key, that's how he thinks. He's a horn dog, but like I said, he gets better. But one thing I do like him, he is competent, and he does change and go through a positive character arc. What else? If you notice in the art style when I was reading on some of the backgrounds, let me find one. Like just when they're in the Gantz room, it looks as if they're a lot of the backgrounds are just CG. Almost all of the backgrounds are just 3D models. And while that's not a uncommon thing for manga to use like pictures or 3D models, it's like that is like this part of this mangaka's style. He almost exclusively uses 3D models for all his backgrounds. And even if manga generally strives for realism, I'll just say that Gantz really strives for realism in a whole other sense, like almost in a live action sort of way. I think Gantz could lend itself well to live action. I know there is a live action adaptation. I haven't watched it. I haven't heard bad things about it, but I can't. I don't have an opinion on it because I don't know how it stacks up against the manga. Of course, I always think you should read the manga first, or eventually read the manga. And and for the realistic world that he is doing, it works. And he even shows how he does it. If I can find the behind the scenes, how he does it. I think it's in this one. I always like when mangaka include behind the scenes stuff. I really need to find these pages ahead of time before I do these reviews. And he has like 3D characters as placeholders, just to get heights right. Probably not. He's not like tracing characters. You can tell, like, because the characters aren't really stiff or anything. It's just 3D backgrounds. Yeah, here it is. Straight up. It shows the 3D backgrounds and these 3D models of characters. They're really just placeholders. Yeah, it's cool. The name is just on like notebook paper. Then here the characters by themselves, and then the backgrounds by themselves. And usually, I'm the type of artist that I might use reference, but I wouldn't want to like trace or use a 3D model. I'd want to draw it myself. But I'm not gonna hate on someone else doing it because it works for the story that he's telling, and he has his own style. Because it is moment to moment, sometimes I do get a little lost in what's happening. And what really throws me off is they have these guns, these futuristic guns, that can kill these aliens, but they're like delayed. They fire them, and then there's like a lag. And sometimes it throws me off because I like, did it hit or not? But I guess that's a whole part of the tension, anticipation. You get to see if it hits or not, or if they missed. Anyway, dang, I'm at 14 minutes. I don't know if I missed anything. And I'm not gonna lie, Gantz will rip your heart out. Like I was reading at a certain point in the arc, when Key gets better and he gets his life together, I straight up, there's a time when I just wanted to cry. So be prepared. This is going to be an emotional manga. You're going to care for a lot of the main cast. And that's good, because the worst kind of story is a story that you read and you just don't care about the characters or anything that's happening, because then there'd be no point. Well, that's the review. If you enjoyed it, leave me a comment of why and what other series you'd like me to review. And if you want to see future reviews, then be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell as well, so you will be notified for when I upload a next review. And I try to upload a review every week, and I was kind of on a hiatus, but now I'm back. And hit that notification bell as well to be notified. Also, I introduced myself as a mangaka in the making because I have my own manga called Cold Blooded, and you can read it for free on Webtoon, and it's Pastic, and I'll include the links to it. And I have a copy right here. It's a copy I signed, but that's what it looks like. It's the back side. That's the artwork. And so, if you want to feel like giving me a chance, go check it out. And I also have Patreon. So if you read it and you enjoy it, you can't wait to read more. You can, for only $3, you can read the next chapter immediately before anyone else, before it's made public. And so, if you ain't read Gantz yet, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and read it right now.